All right, give me just one moment while Zoom is setting live to YouTube. All right, and we are live.
Well, howdy, everybody. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. My name is Krista Barron. I'm Director of Social Media at Texas A&M. I'm joined by two of my wonderful team members, Nick Wilson, who's our University Social Media Manager, and Jacob Spetz, who is our Social Media Coordinator. So we're going to share with you guys today some of the ways that we've been able to use Reddit, which some of you may have heard of. Some of you might know somebody, have someone in your life who uses it pretty frequently. Some of you may not have any clue at all, and that's totally fine. We'll break down some stuff, tell you a little bit about it, and we'll leave some time at the end of our presentation for questions as well. So get excited. There's confetti, you know, it's going to be fun. So we'll go through really quickly, and we'll talk just kind of high level Reddit 101. So if you aren't familiar with what it is or kind of what the appeal would be from a university perspective, we'll walk through that. We'll give you 3 tactics, just 3 things that we've been able to utilize as our team to better share the Texas A&M story. And then we'll leave some time, as I mentioned, for questions. I will go ahead and preface this and tell you guys that this presentation does have a lot of the color orange in it. And for us Aggies, we just have a natural aversion to the color orange. To our friends at Tennessee, Auburn, Florida, we love you guys. But this was probably the hardest part of putting together this deck for y'all, was the rather unfortunate color in our humble opinion of Reddit's logo. So with that, I'll turn it over to Nick.
Howdy. Yes, like Krista said, my name is Nick Wilson. I help manage social media here at Texas A&M. And yeah, let's just jump in. Before we start talking about our tactics and start talking about how we use Reddit, let's get a good understanding of what Reddit is. I'm sure some of you are very familiar with it, use it in your day-to-day, and others of you maybe have never really explored Reddit. So let's just get a base understanding of what we're talking about. A little Reddit 101. So Reddit is oftentimes referred to as the front page of the internet. And that's because all of the best content, all of the best stories, all of the best social media posts from other places, other websites, end up on Reddit. They find themselves on Reddit in these communities across the platform. And so it's kind of a content aggregator in that sort of way, but it's also a social media platform. And not only that, it's the 7th most visited website in the United States and 18th in the entire world. So very powerful, a lot of people on it all the time across the communities and on the front page. Another interesting thing when you're coming at it from a social media perspective is it's 50% desktop, 50% mobile. I know whenever we're talking about social media content, we normally say mobile first, like everyone has a phone in their hand, they're looking at social media on their phones. Reddit also has a lot of desktop users. So that is one thing that differentiates it from other social media platforms. Another thing is that people tend to spend 10 minutes, at least 10 minutes per visit. So there probably aren't many social media platforms that rival that. Maybe YouTube, maybe TikTok. But whenever people are on Reddit, they're planning on spending a little bit of time on there, browsing communities, looking at different posts, upvoting, commenting, all that sort of stuff. I mentioned subreddits a little bit. That's what you call the communities on Reddit. And we'll get into those a little bit more, but across the entire website, there are about 2.8 million subreddits. So 2.8 million communities. So anything you can think of. I was just having fun and I searched golden doodles. There is a subreddit with 32,000 people who all share the same commonality of loving golden doodles. So you can be a part of that if you want. And then the demographic, which always very important when you're talking about, is this a place we should spend our time? The demographic is a little bit different from many social media platforms. Here it says 18 to 29-year-olds, but the bulk of that is 25 to 29-year-olds. I know for us at least, and for many higher ed teams, that's not an easy demographic to always target. 25 to 29-year-olds, that's recent graduates, that's your alumni who are younger, getting into the workforce, doing whatever they're doing. The second most is 18 to 24-year-olds. So we kind of lump those together since 18 to 24, I think that's normally what higher ed teams think of as their core demographic as far as age goes. So it's that sweet spot, 18 to 29-year-olds. And so those are some quick facts, but let's talk about Reddit. Etiquette on Reddit. So what differentiates it from other social media platforms? You don't follow accounts. You don't follow your favorite brands. You don't follow influencers. You find your subreddit. You subscribe to a subreddit. So it's about these niche communities where you, if you're interested in hiking, you go to that community. You don't follow an individual. So you spend time in this community with like-minded people or people with common interests, and you build your relationship. You post there. And Jacob, I know we'll talk about this a little bit later, but that includes universities. That includes Texas A&M. So we have a community on Reddit. But we don't just have to only post in that. We can post in other ones too. It's a powerful platform because of all the users, because of the demographics that we're talking about, and because of all of the subreddits. And it's also a forgiving social media platform. So if you're thinking about posting, you would never post 50 times. Well, maybe you would, certain circumstances, but you wouldn't normally post 50 times a day on Twitter. You certainly wouldn't post 50 times a day on Instagram. But if you wanted to on Reddit, that would be completely fine because it wouldn't be seen as spam. You can post 50 times once across 50 different communities, and there won't be much overlap. There probably aren't many users who subscribe to these multiple communities that you're posting in and would be bothered by, let's say, Texas A&M posting that many times. Since it is about communities, every time we post, people who use Reddit, people who subscribe to our student subreddit won't see all of our posts. So if we go post in, let's say, climate change, and then we go post in Texas, and we go post in, I don't know, our mascot is a collie, so collies, we can post 3 times, and only those communities will see each one of those posts. So it's very forgiving. Also forgiving in that one of your posts, if it does really well, that's awesome. If it gets no attention, that's totally fine. You can try again with another story on another community the next day. It doesn't matter. Also, it's important to read the rules of each subreddit. So they have rules. Most of them are things like don't self-promote, don't spam, don't post things unrelated to the community. It's important to understand those rules before posting. And then we'll talk about this a lot through our tactics, but it's kind of pick what you want to do on Reddit. A lot of the times when you're thinking of, should we be on this new platform? Should we be on this different platform? It's, do we have the bandwidth? Do we have the means to be able to post consistently on there? That's the great thing about Reddit. You don't have to post all that much. Nobody's looking for you to be consistent in posting. You can also just spend a lot of time listening and seeing what your community and what other communities are saying and saying about your brand. But whenever you do post, you can tell your story to these specific niche communities who care about what you're saying. I know with our social media, a lot of the time we have research stories or things happening with our faculty that 99% of people won't be into. They won't understand what we're talking about. Even writing posts about many engineering things, I have no idea what I'm writing. Like, I don't know the depths of this research, but there's a community on Reddit who cares very deeply about that. And if you post there, they'll be into it and they'll enjoy it. And so the last thing is, it's pretty easy. It's a lot less time intensive than most social media platforms. And that's one of my favorite things about it is that you can go post. It doesn't need rich media. It doesn't need a great photo or graphic. A lot of the times communities, subreddits require you to just post the headline of an article, or you just post, the best thing to do is to keep your posts within 90 characters. So maybe it's an image and just 90 characters. It's a lot easier than coming up with an Instagram caption and then monitoring the comments the rest of the day. So it's pretty easy and forgiving.
So we'll jump into kind of the first of the 3 tactics that we'll show you guys of just things that we have done with varying degrees of success. And the first of that is being able to share some of those stories that Nick just talked about through relevant subreddits. And so I know we've kind of talked a lot about it already, but, and you guys know this as well, higher ed, our research topics, the academic interests of our faculty, the projects that our students are working on, they can literally focus on just about anything. And I guarantee you, and you guys know this as communicators, there is an audience, there is a group of people that care about that particular topic, no matter if it's related to climate change, violins, nuclear physics, or, you know, as I have here, old cannons. These are all things that we've posted about on Reddit and have really hit home with the groups that really that it really resonates with. So how do you find these things? How do you find what's your subreddit, right? Where should you post? There's this really nifty site. If you go to reddit.com/subreddit, and if you up in that little search bar, you can just type about anything that you want, any word, any phrase, anything, and it will come up with a community. I've even played a game before where I've just typed in random things that pop into my mind, and I have literally found a community for every single thing. And fun fact, while we were preparing for this presentation, we typed in Alabama, our wonderful hosts. And who would have thought the very first subreddit that comes up when you type in Alabama is r/Roll Tide. Big surprise there, I think. So a great website to go look and see. You can find your own communities. I guarantee you there's a lot of conversations happening just around your universities before, and then even about the topic areas that you're sharing. So this is the guy that started it all for us. We've regularly been on Reddit for about 3 years now in terms of what content we're sharing and just being a regular contributor there in those communities. This was our very, very first post. If you guys know anything about Texas, you know we love Texas history, and you probably have heard of the Alamo. We have lots of strong feelings about the Alamo. It's also kind of this unofficial thing. As a Texan, you have to take a trek to San Antonio at some point in your life to visit it. And so we do a lot of work at Texas A&M with the Alamo. We have a wonderful program through our archaeology department that restores a lot of like old things, old stuff. And so we are a long-term, have a long-term relationship with the Alamo. We have restored every single cannon that they have, as well as other things. And it's quite an ordeal to get them to and from Texas, or to and from College Station to San Antonio. And so this was a YouTube video that we had. And you can tell if you look at the very top where we put that subreddit, we put it in a subreddit all about Texas. So r/Texas. And you can tell when you look at the side right here, users will up or downvote your particular topic. So if you post an article or you post a video or whatever you post, if they think it's interesting, they'll give you an upvote. So you can tell our Alamo Cannon video had 760 upvotes. And then down at the bottom, you'll see some comments, right? So people can reply to it and can engage with that conversation, or can engage with that content there as well. So the way to kind of look at it is sort of how you would a Twitter thread, or even that's probably the easiest way, I guess. Users will reply to other users. They'll reply to your original post. They will have a lot of really healthy conversation that's happening in that. So we had some good dialogue going of people talking about Alamo cannons. So kind of a fun thing. And so since then, I'll just show you guys just different ways, different content that we've posted. So this is a story that we made, had an announcement about opening or using free open resource textbooks. So you can tell we posted our story. You can see that blue right there. That's our university news website. So we obviously want to drive traffic to our university, our own sites. And we've done that here, and we've put that in a subreddit called r/college. So it's all about people who are looking for college resources, who are kind of seeking that information out about the admissions process and FAFSA and all those things that that our prospective students are kind of going through. And so we were able to kind of share this resource here. You can tell all we've really done is we've linked off to our own website. We've taken, I think that's like the first sentence of that particular story, that headline. Very low stakes, right? Not a ton of anything. And it had of anything preparation on our part, and it had a really pretty decent response. And then sometimes you can post the same thing in different communities. So these are all different things that we have posted. Once again, they link back to our news website, and they all have to do with fear. We have a professor that studies fear and why people like that sensation and putting themselves in scary situations like haunted houses. And so these are all the different communities where we have shared that and kind of linked back to it. And you can kind of tell based on sort of some of the traction there. And we didn't have a ton of comments on this, but we had some more upvotes with psychology, right? Which kind of makes sense that people are kind of interested into why you feel that way. The horror people in r/horror, not so much. They didn't care. They just like to be scared. I guess they don't like to think of why they're scared. But like Nick mentioned, that's just something that we tried, right? It hit with one audience. It didn't hit with another, but no one got mad at us or, yelled at us for posting in their subreddit unnecessarily, because it was on topic and something that we could see from that drove some traffic to our site and had people read that story. And then this is another thing you can tell here. We just used a link to one of our tweets. So if you guys are Game of Thrones fans and you didn't know this, you probably do, but we are the official repository of George R.R. Martin and all of his things that he has done over his prolific career as a writer, which includes authoring Game of Thrones. And so as a result, we have all kinds of Game of Thrones memorabilia from the show here. If you guys ever text A&M, let us know, we can hook you up. So this is, we posted because we have Arya's dagger, which if you're a Game of Thrones fan, you know the significance of that. And we've posted in r/Houston and r/Austin. It's a good day trip for you to come see that, right? To come see all those things and get to kind of explore here. And so you can tell, once again, very low stakes for us. And the only kind of edits that we did was update the city and the mileage, right? And both of those were pretty well received in both of those communities, but also we were able to kind of link back to a tweet that gave you some more information about it. And then sometimes it doesn't even have to be your own stuff, right? It can be a great article that you have a professor or communicator in. So this was a article that our news team had worked really hard. We placed an expert and we wanted to take advantage of that, right? We did that. We put a lot of work in. And so we were able to share this story. It was in the Houston Chronicle, the newspaper in Houston. And so we shared it in r/Houston again. So once again, showing light on our professors, our research in a way that's not necessarily content that we own. And then this one, when we tell you there's a subreddit for everything. If any of you guys are Big Brother fans, for some reason, I don't know, the last like 3 or 4 seasons, we've had a steady stream of Aggies that show up on Big Brother on CBS. And this was Cliff, who, if you watched this show at all, was a beloved cast member in the house. And he is an Aggie, came back with his family. And so we took this photo. It's a photo that we shared on Reddit in the Big Brother subreddit. And people just got so excited because they love Cliff. And he did a really great job of wearing a lot of great Texas A&M gear in the Big Brother house for us too. So that was pretty fun. But like I said, something that's a very niche group that not a lot of people necessarily our larger audiences would care about, but a way that we could really connect with the community that does to kind of better share our story. And then last but not least, this right here is our probably most successful post on Reddit to date. This one still kind of pops up in our news analytics about the number of chicken wings that you will eat during Super Bowl Sunday, right? So had a lot of conversation happening in NFL in preparation to Super Bowl Sunday. So our kind of recommendations when you're kind of thinking about this and where should I post stuff, what should I do? Think of getting outside of the box, outside of your normal terms of research, right? Think of different communities that will potentially be interested in what you're doing or what you're sharing. And then remember to get as specific as you possibly can. Like I know we've said this and we've harped on this a lot, but I'm not even kidding. Y'all, there is a subreddit for everything. Absolutely everything. You can find it. You can find a group, and it may be small, but those people are going to care a lot about what you're saying if you hit the right mark. And then also, you know, the other thing, don't worry if it doesn't work out, right? If you post it and nobody upvotes it, nobody comments, whatever, you know, you tried, you shot your shot, move on and try it again next time. Reddit, like Nick mentioned, it's very, very forgiving.
So let's take a look at, I guess, a case study of sorts. You've probably heard of AMAs on Reddit before, and Ask Me Anything. It's a good opportunity to highlight experts that you have at your university. So all of us have innumerable experts across campus doing very fascinating things that probably not many people understand in depth. And so this was in March, where we have a star epidemiologist, a really big epidemiologist in Texas, on the news, in the press, all across the board doing media types of things. So she's a star. And at the same time, we were getting a lot of questions in March about vaccine safety. What do the vaccines do? How are they developed? Are they okay to take? What's happening with the pandemic? Is it over? Are we going to have another surge? All those sorts of things that I can't speak on behalf of all of our social media team, but I am not qualified to answer those things. But we have this expert. And so we thought, what if we pair these two things up, the questions that we're getting and the expert, the really personable, energetic, enthusiastic expert we have, into a Reddit AMA. And so basically what an AMA is you sit down with an expert, or we sat down with an expert, and anybody on that subreddit or anybody across Reddit can ask that person a question that they can reply to in their own words. We thought this would be a very exciting opportunity. And so the steps we took to do this, we reached out to her. We said, is this something you're interested in? Thankfully, her husband, the epidemiologist husband, Dr. Fisher, very into Reddit. And he's like, yes, you have to do this. It will be so much fun. And she was down. So we talked to her. We said, this is what we were thinking. This is the day we were thinking. We were thinking maybe 1 to 2 hours of your time and just asking honest, truthful questions from students and former students and whoever else was on our subreddit that day. We did decide to do it within r/Aggies, which is the Texas A&M focused subreddit, because most of the questions that we were getting were about what do classes look like in the fall? How does this affect me on campus? How does this affect my kid on campus? And so they're very much focused to our community. Another thing we did was we worked with our graphics team to come up with different size graphics for all of our social media platforms where we promoted this upcoming AMA so that people on Twitter could submit questions, people on our Instagram story could submit questions that we could answer, and just to draw them to Reddit to participate in this. You can also see at the bottom there that we posted, they were having an AMA the day before and saying, hey, we'll be here tomorrow at 2 o'clock to answer your questions. Please drop them in the comments and we'll be back tomorrow. Kind of hold this space. We'll be back and we'll spend 2 hours answering your questions and going through this with you. And so what did that end up looking like? We got a ton of responses, and I would say 95% positive. We ended up with about 120 comments that we were able to go through and answer probably about 50 of them. And they were anything from, as you can see on here, when will things be back to normal, whatever that looks like? Are COVID shots going to be annual things in the year like flu shots? Is it true some people with certain blood types are more resistant to COVID-19? And there are other fun questions, like she mentioned that she's a dog mom. And so people asked about her dogs. They asked about what is your favorite thing in Texas? What is your favorite place to eat in College Station? And she answered those too, which is excellent because it lets her get out this expert information that she can explain so eloquently and in a way that everyone can understand. But it also makes her more personable. It makes her seem like a person, not just an epidemiologist and a professor. It lets you know that, hey, she has a bulldog named Peanut Butter Jelly Time and an 8-year-old French bulldog that is named Sweet Potato. I'm sorry, Sweet Potato is actually in English. Sorry, I misread that. But like, it puts her on the same level as everyone else. We signed all of the comments as Dr. Fisher to let them know these are her words. The social media team is not putting in words for her. We were literally sitting down with her. We would read her a question and she would say her answer. And we would type that out and say, does this look good to you? Most of the time she would say yes. Sometimes she would have a couple of edits to phrasing or whatever. And then we'd post it with her signature to let people know transparently and clearly, this is what Dr. Fisher is saying. This is Dr. Fisher's response. This isn't the Texas A&M social media team saying this. And because of that, we were able to answer a lot of questions, build sort of that trust with our community and do something that that is such a common thing on Reddit in having an AMA, but a unique Texas A&M higher ed sort of way. And so the steps, I'll just run through them one more time really quickly. It's identify an expert on your campus. You have plenty across your colleges, across your departments, doing all sorts of amazing things that I'm sure your community or a community on Reddit would like to hear about and ask questions about. Sit down with your expert and say, hey, this is kind of what we're expecting, set expectations with them, set expectations with your team. And then reserve 1 to 2 hours so you can really spend time diving into these questions and getting thorough, transparent answers. We really encourage people to post ahead of time across social media platforms and on Reddit to kind of hold this space. Hey, this is coming, heads up, save the date, that sort of thing, to get more people to come back and participate later. And then be transparent and show personality. A lot of the times faculty members talk about things that are really heady, that are really difficult to understand. And it's all about having them show their unique personality and put their kind of special twist on it to make it a really enjoyable experience for everybody while you're learning something new. In this case, about vaccines and about the pandemic. And then best practices, like I said, set expectations. Have a pre-meeting with your expert, kind of explain AMAs to them if they're not familiar. Talk about what kind of questions you expect. You can even maybe plant some questions in case you don't get as many as you wanted. And just make sure everybody's on the same page to make this run smoothly. Work with moderators. So there are moderators on different subreddits. who, if you reach out to them, they'll probably respond. They're very active on Reddit. And so let's talk about r/Aggies, the Texas A&M community on Reddit. We work with those moderators pretty closely. So anytime we have very important safety information we need to get out, we can work with those moderators and they will pin that to the top of the Aggies subreddit. In this case, we worked with the moderators to pin this AMA the day before. So the first thing you see when you go on reddit.com/r/Aggies is that this AMA was coming. So work with them to get more promotion, to get more attention to it. As your university account, you can upvote your favorite comments as they're coming in, so they're easier to find the next day. If we would have just had 120 comments that we had to sift through that day of when we had her for an hour, it would have taken a lot of time and would have wasted a lot of the special time that you could have had with that expert. And then also for transparency, we would always encourage you to sign the responses to the AMAs with your expert's name to make it clear that it's not the person behind the keyboard, it's not the person running the social media account who's answering this, it is that expert.
Jacob, I can't hear you. Is anyone else having trouble?
Are we good? Are we there?
Yep, there you go.
Awesome. Howdy, I'm Jacob. I'm going to be walking us through the third tactic where we're going to look at some unofficial market research and how to use Reddit outside of the brand. So this is a little slide that kind of shows, we've been talking about a lot during this presentation, our r/Aggies. Around SEC, we took a quick look and saw that there's a whole bunch of Reddit subreddits. There's ones specifically related to athletics, maybe specifically related to admissions, maybe specifically related to housing, just different things. So I definitely encourage everybody, if you're going to go explore Reddit, to look in those other varieties. You may see something cool, maybe see something that you can interact with. And I'm going to talk about how I have used Reddit from my own personal account to help accomplish some of our team's goals. So we have our Aggie rules on r/Aggies. Like Nick kind of hit on, just about every subreddit has rules. Our favorite rule is, of course, no TSIP. If you're not familiar with what a TSIP is, that's that orange school in Austin that we don't like to talk a lot about. So the first thing, all across all social media, one of the biggest parts of our job in social media is listening. And Reddit's a great place to do that. You don't have to have a brand account to do that. But your community is there. Like we've been talking about this whole time, there are thousands and thousands of people who care about your school, care about your campus community, who are members of these communities that are out there talking. We have here this person super excited about having face-to-face classes this fall. And then somebody comes in with a very genuine response saying, I'm a little nervous about it. And we can take this and we can share with our mental health professionals on campus and let them know that, hey, there's this little bit of apprehension with people, and help make it an easy and exciting time for everybody coming up this fall. It's going to be one of the greatest semesters ever across the SEC. And then this is also awesome. We've used Reddit as a free focus group. So we're onboarding an ad agency right now. And as anybody who's ever worked for or with an ad agency knows, usually a big part of that is a questionnaire. So we got this questionnaire, had about 50 questions about different things about our campus to help them understand what's going on here at Texas A&M. And this was one of the questions. And I looked at this question, I'm like, I bet our Reddit community would have a lot of fun with that question. Could we go ahead and ask the community? So we made sure that we got it all cleared up through everybody to make sure that we were allowed to go ahead and ask this question. And we threw it up there and got 150 or 149 responses. And we're going to show you a couple of them just to see that people took it seriously, gave us some genuine responses, but also had some fun with it. So we have, different things. People said, hey, I'd like to have a little bit more of these resources. I'd like for our buildings to not look like they were designed in Soviet Russia. Different things that we could help present the ad agency with, like, what the campus community feels about Texas A&M in a way that we couldn't just asking people in our department these questions. And then my favorite comment is this next one. He wants a private overpass from his apartment to his parking structure on campus. He wants a Whataburger on campus. He wants a shade so that campus doesn't get sun during the summer. Zip line so he can get between his classes on zip lines in no particular order. He had a lot of fun with this question. This was the top question, so we thought we'd share it with everybody. And there were a bunch of questions like this, but there were also a bunch of answers where people did actually give genuine answers, and it's free. It's like Nick was saying earlier, you can't lose when you post a question like this, because it either picks up steam or nothing really happens to it and it just gets brushed along. So if you have a question for your community, like we were saying, it's a safe place to ask it. Reddit's very smart, and it also moderates itself. So you're asking a question, somebody comes in with something that's either not on topic or inappropriate or vulgar or whatever, other people in that community just hit that little downvote thing, and before you know it, it's just doesn't exist anymore. It's just like, the algorithm on Reddit itself covers it up, and you have to like physically click to like see that comment that all these people have already determined isn't connected. So Reddit's very safe, and it's a fun way to look at it a little differently using your personal account to use Reddit to accomplish your goals. And then the last thing, use Reddit for good. So I know for me and for our team here at Texas A&M, we have a lot of like insider kind of information just from being around the A&M community. There's different things that we know. For me personally, I came here for school from Pennsylvania. So I had a lot of experience in the cold, a lot more than they had down here. And especially we've had a couple snowstorms this year. So I got on Reddit and let the people know, hey, listen, this is what's going to happen. You might not have experienced this before, but when it gets cold out, when it starts snowing, you want to go have a snowball fight, your fingers are going to shrink. They're going to get smaller, and your rings are going to go flying off into the snow, and it's going to ruin your day. So, just make sure that your rings, secured in a glove or tape or something so that you don't lose it, right? This is something that at that time when we're dealing with logistics, dealing with keeping people safe, keeping people warm, it's not necessarily appropriate for the brand to say, but it's appropriate for you or your personal account to share with that community. And, 9 comments and 93 upvotes, people like agree. They're like, yeah, like this has happened to me. Like this guy knows what he's talking about. Make sure you guys pay attention to this comment. There's no, like it says on the slide, there's no reason not to do it. So takeaways, we have 3 takeaways here for us. First, your audiences are on Reddit. Go find them. Like Nick was saying, you have your campus communities, but you also have all those little niche communities that you do have experts on campus that are superstars to those communities. And this is a great opportunity for you to use your brand to connect your experts to those people. Reddit's low risk, high reward. Like we were saying, it's self-regulating. If something doesn't take off, it's okay. It's just moving on to the next time. You can post the same story in a bunch of different places, the same photo in a bunch of different places. It might become, a trending thing on the internet, and it might just become, another footnote in the digital history of your brand. And then number 3, experiment, give it a try. Reddit is very diverse. It's very vibrant. There's a lot of variety going on Reddit. There's apps. It's the only like social media that there's apps to help you have a better Reddit experience. And it's changing, it's different, and it's very conducive to experience in a different way every time you click. So with that, we'd love to answer any questions you guys have. And thank you for tuning in.
I see. I know we have some in the chat.
So I can pick up that last question right there.
Yes.
With the AMA, Reddit users can submit questions beforehand. Also, many of them were submitted simultaneously. It doesn't matter. The reason we set it up the day before, we posted on Reddit the day before and said, hey, this is happening tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Post your questions in the comments, just so we can have some queued up, so we can kind of set expectations with our expert and say, hey, this is what people are asking. So we can kind of get that ball rolling a little easier. And then in the 1 to 2 hours that we spent answering questions, certainly many more did come in and we answered those live. It's just kind of, the answer is both. Kind of gives you that option there. And then I think there was a question before that about communicating with moderators. I can take that too if y'all are okay. We usually just DM them from the university account or from our personal accounts. Doesn't really matter, but from the university account most of the time. And we only talk to the Aggie, the r/Aggies moderators from our university account. because they know us, they recognize us. We provide them other contact information if they want to email us about it. But we've not had any problems there. Working on other subreddits, the only time we would reach out to moderators, we would use our personal accounts, not the university account there. So talking within our community, yes, the brand account. Talking outside of our subreddit, our personal accounts.
Guys, thank you. Sorry. Thank you guys so much. We definitely still have time for some additional questions. Let me just jump back into things here. I'm so sorry for the technical difficulties on my part. I fully intended to give you guys a fantastic introduction, but thank you, Krista, for just taking the lead and rolling with it. If anyone is wondering who I am and why my microphone is off, I am Brinkley Pierce, and I am the moderator. I'm a marketing manager with the University of Alabama. So once again, thank you all for the fantastic presentation and for bearing with us. As we get to a couple of different questions, please continue to drop them in the chat. I do have one. I was wondering, so how do you see platforms such as Reddit, as well as other emerging news, information, and even social media sites changing the landscape of communications in higher education?
How do we see that? I'm sorry, I kind of dropped the first part of the question.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, so how do you see platforms such as Reddit and other emerging news, information, or even social media sites changing the landscape of communications in higher education?
Totally. So I think if anything, I know all of us have seen that the past year, right? If we didn't know the kind of shift to digital was happening, the pandemic kind of made it happen for us when everyone had to do it. I think what we're seeing, especially now, we've got our students here on campus for their new student conferences. And if you go out and you see them, most of them are like looking down at this, right? Like they're scrolling and finding information about you on a phone. And now how you choose to reach them there, that's kind of on us to figure out and on us to decide, right? We try to be mindful of, like Nick mentioned, of the demographic and whether or not that's a target audience that the university is trying to reach and where they're at. Sometimes, as I know, for some of you guys, I recognize we've been doing this together for a while in social media management, things that we used in the past that were really great and really a good tool for us don't become relevant anymore. So we constantly are doing a temperature check to see if it's still being effective, if we're still getting traction, or did that group move somewhere else? So like a good example for us is we used to focus a lot on Snapchat. That was something that our students were all over, that we could reach really easily. They engaged with us a lot on there. We had a lot of interaction with prospective students on there as well. And we just don't have that. If you guys also, social media managers, Snapchat did a redesign a few years ago, and it kind of tanked, at least for us, any kind of engagement or interaction that we were getting at that point. And so we tried to keep it on a lifeline for a while. And at some point, you just realize this, the group may still be here, but the way that I was able to reach them, it's just not working for us right now, right? Can I put those efforts somewhere else, right? So we're kind of constantly checking in on that. And of course, when we hear about something or see something new, we go check it out. If at anything, and this is just good advice for social media managers, if you see anything that pops up, go get your username. Even if you have no intention of using that thing, just go grab your username. It will save you the headache of having to deal with a startup and your trademarks and user, all that good stuff. So even for the sake of that, even if you have no intention of using it, being able to go on and do it is great. But yes, so I think if anything, we're just seeing more and more importance on digital communication, right? Especially in the wake of the pandemic. And for most of us, and some of us even still now, depending on where you're located, you're still having to communicate and function and operate your university all digitally. And I know, once again, I'm preaching to the choir. We've all done graduations. We've all done like new student conferences. We have done, classes, everything has been all online. And so I think, you may not see the severity of that we were sort of forced into doing in 2020, but definitely people, I think, have grown more comfortable with Zooming and going to virtual events and things like that. So definitely something I think that's going to impact our collective communications going forward.
Sure. And Deidre wants to know, do you all consider Reddit a news platform or a social media platform?
So I think it's probably a little of both. Nick, you want to jump in on that one?
Sure. So I just wanted to mention one thing that we did not talk about in our presentation. There are many other ways to use Reddit. Another great one is, as the university, whenever you're monitoring, whenever you're listening, and there are questions the students have, the same as on any other social media platform, there will be questions that a university can answer one-on-one. And that's really the social aspect of it. When we were talking about it earlier, it sounded like we were just posting something and never looking at it again. And if it does well, that's awesome. If it doesn't, that's fine too. We do try to listen to our communities and be a part of them and answer questions and really provide that one-on-one sort of social media feel.
Okay. Do you all have a dedicated team member for Reddit?
I would say right now it's probably Jacob. It's a combination. The way we're kind of structured, because we're a smaller team with a lot of accounts, we have people that are kind of designated as the primary posters, but everybody else can kind of sub in when we need to. So Jacob is kind of our primary person on Reddit, but we're all kind of watching it and weighing in and checking and seeing what's going on, or even recommending a lot of times, like, we've got an announcement, or, hey, this is a cool story. Do you think we could find somewhere to put it on Reddit? So we think about it a lot just in terms of our day-to-day communications as well.
Sure. And then looking at the chat, to the question about tracking Google Analytics, traffic, page views, things like that as a product of Reddit, how also do you all report on Reddit metrics?
So we get a weekly kind of social media report. We do track with Google Analytics, all of our traffic and page views and everything from all of our stories across anywhere we post on social media. Socials consistently our top driver to our news sites. So we are really careful and really thoughtful about where we're putting things and how we're putting them places. And Reddit is one of our top drivers. So we know if we post something on Reddit, a lot of times for you social media managers too, you'll know the vanity metrics and the upvotes and stuff are great and all, but it's the clicks, right? It's the things you can't see sometimes that you're like, oh, okay. So we'll have a big push of people who click through and are actually reading and spending time on that article. And then sometimes what's kind of interesting is a lot of times in our news traffic, we will see something that will show up as having directed, people are coming from Reddit, and it's not something that we put there. So, and you guys might be like this too, but we have a couple of news stories that might be a few years old, but they just kind of, I don't know, the internet loves them. And so they'll just randomly come up in our Google Analytics. So we have this story about London fog, the great London fog. And one of our professors said something about it or did something about it. I don't know. And that story is 8 years old, 9 years old. And it came up this year and from Reddit, because somebody on Reddit had found the story about it in that discussion and put it there. So it not only did the story come back in as one of our top page views for that week, or the top viewed stories for that week, but people were coming from Reddit where they were talking about it. So that also tells us hey, let's go find this conversation and see what's going on. So yes, we do see that a lot. That it consistently is one of our biggest drivers. And like Nick mentioned earlier, people are spending a lot of time on Reddit. And so they tend to spend a little more time reading that story too. So our read time is usually a little longer on those stories than our average for our website as well.
And just to piggyback off of that really quickly, that's just a reminder that people are talking about your brand on Reddit, whether or not you're there. So maybe just another incentive to be there and hear what they're saying and maybe manage that a little bit more from the brand level.
That is a fantastic comment. Krista, Jacob, Nick, thank you guys once again so much. This was a fabulous presentation, very informative. I do want to say that we often look to you all just to see, kind of what you guys are doing sort of as the pinnacle of social media communications. And so you guys are doing a fantastic job. Thank you for sharing some of your knowledge. And thank you for attending our session. Real quick, as we wrap up, I want to thank everyone for attending the breakout session. Thank you for being patient with me as I work through technical difficulties, of course. If you want to review this session or watch another, you can just visit the SECCA 2020 YouTube page. And before we close this year's conference, Ryan Bradley, our interim VP for Strategic Communications here at the University of Alabama, is just going to provide some closing remarks. So we will close out the meeting at this time. Thank you guys once again so much.